This is Dr. John Cullum. The purpose of this record is to speak frankly to you success-minded doctors about the fourth vital facet of success, more money. 97% of all doctors are successful in three or more facets. Yes, 97% of all doctors are successful. They possess the three prime requisites of success. They are doing the work they wish to do, they are doing it well, and they enjoy doing this particular work. The fourth facet is where a great amount of interest lies, because there is no ceiling to success, and everyone desires more money. You have a perfect right to desire more money, and need never apologize for that desire. It is not a matter to be ashamed of. Everyone wants more money. Not to have just money itself, but because money is a means to an end, and that end is your real objective, you want that which money will provide. You have a perfect right to an ample supply of money, a beautiful office or clinic, good equipment, a lovely home, and expensive raiment for yourself and your loved ones. Plenty of vacation time with the family, and if there are children, money for their educational fund, more money for necessities, luxuries, and security in the later years. Many people have mistaken concepts about money. They've been taught since childhood that money itself is the root of all evil. It is not so. The love of money, that is the root of all evil, and it is so stated in the Scriptures. Money is just a medium of exchange, a deserved receipt for services rendered. You desire money for what it represents, the comforts it provides, the satisfaction it gives, and the independence it assures. Desiring more money is praiseworthy because money allows us to serve God and our fellow man more capably. Doctor, you are entitled to more than enough money to furnish your every need and desire. After all, yours is a divine calling. You work with life itself, the God power within, the very source of all supply. Time is greater than money because it is the most precious ingredient in life, and your only assets to turn into money are time and knowledge. They are your stock in trade. The clock of life is wound only once, and the time for it to run out is unknown. Therefore, you can't afford to waste or squander any portion of your precious time. You must plan to make your time produce more dividend checks and learn to turn time into more money. Let me tell you an amazing story about time and money. I call it the $42,000 story. This is a true story. It concerns something that happened to me, something that changed my entire life and outlook on life. This story could happen to you. It enabled me to understand that God wants me to be rich and share in his abundance rather than being busy but broke. I was practicing in a small town in the northeastern part of Texas. Not that the size of the town or location makes any difference in the laws of nature involved or the story I am about to relate. But the situation could be you. I was seeing a packed schedule of patients daily and was busy through most lunch hours and then into the night, busy making the house calls. I did my work in a fairly nice clinic building, was surrounded by a staff of 2 fine doctors, 3 efficient receptionists, and a maid to keep the clinic as clean as a pin. My only thought and concern was the procurement of more patients and the proper care of those I was serving already. I had a large practice concept, but a small money concept. I was classified in my town and my profession as a successful practitioner. The clinic was always busy. I attended the school homecomings and the state conventions. and most of the time I attended them without the family, because traveling with a family is too expensive, you know. I had a wonderful practice of clinic and house calls. My work was planned to the last detail, and the work was always there to do, day and night. But there was no collection plan, no money plan. I had no plan to convert time into money. Oh, I guess I was successful all right. I had the first three elements of success. I thought I had just about attained my life's goal. Of course, there were a few grains of sand still in the gears, but for the most part, I was quite a picture of what I had imagined the ideal doctor to be. At our home, the sweet wife continued to ask, when would we be able to get a home befitting a doctor's family? When could she and the boys get just a couple of weeks' vacation with Daddy? When could she expect to get a real ironing board and an automatic washing machine and a TV? You see, my Ernestine, the doctor's wife, was actually using a board with a blanket wrapped around it, stretched across the backs of two chairs to iron the family wash. The doctor was too busy to take a family vacation. The boys were growing up. The house was not really large enough, since there were 4 now instead of 2. The car was getting old, the tires were wearing thin, and so was the patience of the doctor's family. It was then that I began to notice that other doctors had smaller practices and more money. Salaried patients had new boats, TV sets, patio parties and family vacation trips, and even nicer homes. And then I began to realize that one day the children would be grown. They would need a college education, I would be aging, the clinic and the home would depreciate, the automobile would need replacing soon, and as yet I had no definite goal or plan for turning time into money. I had spent 7 years of life's most precious ingredient, time, and my past due accounts amounted to $42,000. Checking through these accounts brought me to the realization that most of these people had gotten better at the beginning of their service period, but as their unpaid accounts grew, they became negative to our services and lapsed back into their previous illnesses and became my enemies, or at the very least, unfriendly. The cosmic law states you can't get something for nothing, and I was trying to give too many people something for nothing. For any act to benefit any party, it must benefit all parties involved, or it spoils like overripe fruit on the vine, and eventually benefits no one at all, and finally produces repercussions and unhappiness to all parties involved, because the law operates according to laws of balance and reciprocity. So, those who paid as they were served continued to return from time to time, improved in health, got well, returned as the need arose, and they referred others who paid and got well. Balanced, reciprocal interchange. That's the law. I was busy but broke and feeling very unhappy about the $42,000 past due, and feeling unhappy about the loss of the patients that I had credited. My feeling of responsibility for their health was still strong. I began to realize that my responsibility to my fellow man is no greater than his responsibility to me. I thought of the many house calls at 3 o'clock in the morning that had been paid for with a sack of sugar cookies or watermelon rind preserves. I thought of the many days and nights on end that I had left home so early and returned so late that the wife and boys hardly knew there was a daddy in the home. Then, through my mind's eye, flashed the picture of the old age pensioners, the workers on low salaries, and those that just didn't want to pay, the deadbeats that I served. And I knew that I was more obligated to my wife and children, to my profession, and to myself. My health was beginning to weaken, and I knew that the hands of the clock of life were moving slowly but surely toward the final hour. I was still busy but broke. I awoke a few mornings later, physically unable to go to the office. I was very tired from overwork, weak from loss of sleep, rushing head-on toward a coronary attack before I reached the age of 40. While lying there in that sick bed, I had a weird brain picture of my wife and two fine boys. Suppose they were alone in the world without father or husband. Many questions arose in that half-exhausted mind, and these I remember very clearly. Who will raise the money for the education of those two boys who watch for me to come home early night after night? Are the obligations to a wife and children greater than those to a stranger? Who will occupy the clinic building that I gave my life to build? Who will meet the needs of my mother? She's over 80 years of age, you know. How about all the plans and ambitions that my young wife had when she married me? Shall they be for naught? Hasn't she too contributed greatly to this cause? Where is her reward? Is this all that I leave to this great profession, my college and my colleagues? Why be so busy but broke? It was then that I realized, for the sake of my family, my patients, and my profession, that my financial condition must be changed. I must get on a cash basis. I also realized that the fault was mine because I had no money plan, no collection plan, in other words, no blueprint for turning time into money. Therefore, I must develop procedures that would ensure reciprocal, balanced interchange with all patients to eliminate misunderstanding, indebtedness, and negativity. I reasoned that no one could correct this condition for me. I must make the correction and develop the blueprint of action myself. Knowing that I must start with a clean slate, I decided to throw out the ballast in order that I would not have to carry yesterday's mistakes over my head. I took step number 1 and wrote the following letter canceling all accounts more than 90 days past due, a total of $42,000 worth of them. Dear Mr. Smith, just a note to let you know we realize you have been overburdened with financial difficulties these past few months. In order that we may be of help in this matter, we are enclosing a receipt for the full amount of your unpaid account. We appreciate the confidence you have had in us while we cared for your health problems. We also appreciate the kind words you have always spoken in behalf of us and our profession. When in need of future health care, know that we stand ready to serve you, beginning with a clean slate. Sincerely yours, John R. Cullum, D.C. Each day, I set aside 2 appointments for conferences with active patients who were delinquent in their accounts. I opened these conferences by saying, Mr. Smith, I asked to speak with you today about a problem I feel I can help you solve. I realize you've been overburdened with money difficulties these past few months, and I know it doesn't give you a good feeling to owe us money. Let me help you in this way. Your past due account is now $92.50. Starting today, I suggest you pay for your adjustments as you receive them. Then begin paying an additional $4 or $5 on your account each month. From past experience, I know that by eliminating this worry, you will get well faster. 95% of my patients appreciated my interest and cooperated fully. The other 5% were reluctant to cooperate, and since I had already served them long and faithfully, I felt they were not worthy of more of my time and energy. Therefore, I dismissed them. The third step I took was to start all new patients on a cash basis. Of course, I permitted my old patients who had been paying their accounts in full before the 10th of each month to continue on that basis. With these 3 simple steps, I was on a cash basis and no longer busy but broke. Automatically, I increased my income and patient referrals. My patients are now happy and cooperative, and they refer people who pay. My wife, Ernestine, now has all the things she yearned for, including a home completely remodeled by a well-known architect and cared for by a full-time maid. She drives a blonde Cadillac, which incidentally matches her hair, and she looks beautiful walking into our 14-room clinic wearing her autumn haze mink stole. The time I used to spend collecting and worrying over past due accounts is now divided between vacationing and managing my various investments and securities. If you will follow these rules, you will not have to go through that experience, that weird brain picture which comes as the clock of life is about to run down. It will not be said of you that you too were busy but broke. Remember these 3 steps to convert time into money. Number 1, get rid of inactive old accounts, 90 days or over, by cancellation. Number 2, get on a cash basis with your active patients who owe you money. Number 3, get all new patients on a cash basis. Establish paying habits instead of charging habits by collecting on the first visit. Poverty and illness are not evidence of virtue, but of weakness and timidity. Both you and the patient must benefit for either to benefit. That's the law of reciprocal, balanced interchange, the 4th vital facet of success. The purpose of this record is to help you overcome all difficulties concerning the discussion of time and money with your patients. I used to wish that my chronic patients would allow me adequate time to get them back to health. Now, I use a method and procedure which absolutely solves this problem for me. I also find that patients are happy to pay $300 or $400 for health care in most chronic cases. Discussing time and money became an easy task as soon as I learned the rules governing such a discussion. First, you must understand that time and money are relative. $500 is not much money for a Cadillac, but it is an exorbitant sum for a pencil. A year is not a very long time to spend in regaining lost health, but 5 minutes is a long time to hold your head under water. 10 seconds is a long time to hold your hand in a fire. Remember, it takes 7 years for the body to replace all of its tissue cells. It is necessary to discuss with your patients time and money in such relative terms. I do this in order to make my charges for services and the length of time for complete recovery seem small. I talk in relative terms, using comparisons to minimize the time and cost in the mind of the patient. By doing this, you can easily sell a patient on your services. Part of your responsibility as a doctor is to bring about a frank discussion of time and money to build this relative comparison and enable the patient to realize that time and money are relative in value to the priceless benefits of good health. A chronic patient often expects too much. His understandable desire to regain lost health quickly and with little expense warps his judgment. Before recommendations can be made, we must bring his true situation into sharp focus if we are to expect his understanding and cooperation. You must make preparations to bridge the gulf between what your patient may expect or desire and what he actually needs. My first step in bridging this gulf begins just as I complete the examination. At that time, I explain that my examination will make it possible to tell him 3 things for certain on his next visit. First, whether I can help him get well. Second, how long it will take. And third, how much it will cost. I complete the consultation by stating, Mr. Jones, we'll see you Tuesday. My receptionist will give you an appointment. As soon as his next appointment is made, a vital link in the chain of patient control is forged. At this time, my receptionist will say, "Goodbye, Mr. Jones. We'll see you Tuesday. I certainly hope Dr. Cullum can accept you." When Mr. Jones returns for his report, I make it a point to walk past him in the reception room on my way through and say, "Hello, Mr. Jones." I shake hands with him and say in a confidential tone of voice, "I have some good news for you today. I'll see you in a few moments." And I go on with my duties. I do not mention what the good news may be. This statement makes him eager to hear the report and more receptive to my recommendations. When he comes into my office, I open the conversation with, "Mr. Jones, I have found the basic cause of your trouble. Most doctors don't show their patients x-rays, but I want to show you what we have found. First, I inventory his health assets. I go over the positive things I have discovered during the examination. I mention such things as the apparently good condition of his lungs and the normalcy of his heart. To amplify the assets and to show the thoroughness of my examination, I mention the things I didn't find wrong. For instance, I sometimes say, "Mr. Jones, I have found things in your favor. I have studied your x-rays, and I am happy to tell you that I did not find any evidence of tuberculosis of the lungs or arthritis of the spine. Your spinal discs are normal in size and thickness and without tears or ruptures." This explanation to Mr. Jones effectively conveys the idea that I feel his body is in good enough condition to warrant the necessary expenditure of time and money in making repairs and regaining health. After doing this, I relate my negative findings such as kinks, impinged nerves, and curvatures. Many chiropractors fail to evaluate the patient's health assets in relation to his health liability. When this happens, a high percentage of chronic patients feel so depressed and discouraged that they give up hope. This is what has happened when a chronic patient seeks chiropractic care but does not follow through to gain maximum results. After concluding my examination report, I say something like this: "Mr. Jones, when you were last here, I mentioned that I would be able to tell you 3 things. First, if I could help you. Second, how long it would take to get well. And third, how much it would cost. I am happy to tell you that I can help you provided you are willing to cooperate and will allow me sufficient time. And I know you will be a good cooperative patient, won't you, Mr. Jones? It is my opinion, based on your x-rays and my experience in similar cases, that it will take from 12 to 15 months to achieve maximum results." Then I say, "Mr. Jones, I can see by the examination and x-rays your condition has been coming on for years. The accident that caused your trouble occurred 12 years ago. We usually calculate about a month of getting well time for every year of getting sick time. That's a pretty good trade, don't you think? Your body replaces all of its tissues every 7 years, and a great deal of sick tissue will have to be replaced. This takes time. I want to be conservative in my estimate about how long it will take you to get well, because I'd rather you'd be surprised than disappointed. Considering the many years that your trouble has been developing and the severity of the stage it has now reached, I feel that 15 months is a very short time for you to spend in getting well. I am sure you would much rather spend the next year getting better than to spend it getting worse, wouldn't you?" I always make positive statements followed by questions that require yes answers, and my patients automatically say yes when I get to the final and most important statement, where I say, "Mr. Jones, you've been sick long enough. Let's get started now." I continue my explanation by saying, "Now, Mr. Jones, I am sure you want to know how much this will cost. The return to health always pays you great dividends, and in your present condition, hospitalization and loss of time could cost you thousands of dollars plus hundreds of dollars in doctor bills and drugs, not to mention the suffering you would undergo. The cost of your care for the 12 to 15 months required to get you well will run in the neighborhood of $850. We have an established program for patients with conditions such as yours, and I want to recommend it to you. Of course, we will need to re-x-ray you at intervals of 25 visits, which in your case will be every 2 months. Cost of these x-ray examinations are $27.50 each. After 50 visits, you will have had 2 re-x-ray examinations and 50 visits totaling $255. If payment for the 50 visits is made at the beginning of your adjustments, the cost of the re-x-ray and examinations will be deducted, and you pay only $197.50, a savings to you of $57.50. Merchants have learned long ago that a tag on merchandise reading $10 with a line marked through it and the price changed to $7.95 tends to make the reduced price appear to be low in relation to the $10. This is a simple psychological principle that all advertising men are aware of. Everyone likes to get a bargain. In my recommendation to Mr. Jones, I am utilizing the same principle and psychological motivation. I began my original estimate with a staggering figure of $850. Then I reduced this to $255, and this figure was further reduced to $197.50 by prepayment. $197.50 is a small amount when compared to $850. I have learned from experience that no one likes a doctor bill, regardless of how small it may be. The only way it can be sugar-coated is by using comparisons such as relating health care expenses to the cost of staying sick, losing time on the job, and in extreme cases, costs of hospital, surgical, and funeral expenses. Work with these thoughts until you can see the truth and the logic of them. It is unquestionably true that time and cost are relative, and that they are always negligible when compared to the priceless values of exuberant health. Often, other chiropractors ask me how, in good faith, can I make such specific statements concerning how long it will take for a chronic patient to get well. They seem to be questioning my honesty and integrity. I want to explain right now that I make my recommendations based on my examination, my past experience, and the history of chiropractic results in similar conditions. Yes, occasionally I am wrong, but I am usually right. My estimate of time and results may be in error, sometimes as much as 10%. But even in these cases, the patients will have received far more than their money's worth. You've had the experience of a patient consulting you for a chronic condition and then failing to follow your recommendations. You take the history, you make a thorough examination, you make an excellent report, everything seems to be going along fine. Then, after you've made your recommendations regarding time and money, the patient will give that age-old excuse that he can't afford it. Most of the time, that simply isn't true. What the patient is actually saying is, you haven't sold me. You haven't yet convinced me that what you recommend is more important than a new television set or a weekend at the lake. The way I handle this one is to say, Mr. Jones, I understand perfectly. But when you tell me that you can't afford chiropractic care, you're actually telling me that you can't afford not to have it. If paying for your health needs is a problem now, as your condition grows worse, you will begin to lose time from work and you may become unable to work at all. If paying for care now is difficult, what would you do then? If the patient is a woman, I say, Ms. Jones, I understand that paying for your health needs is a problem, but it is obvious from what you have told me that your condition is getting worse. Putting off the chiropractic care you need now will only add to your burden. I feel it is my responsibility to encourage you to go ahead now, even though it may mean a temporary sacrifice. As your condition gets worse, what is now only a problem of doctor bills may grow into expensive hospitalization and surgery. Ms. Jones, this situation has been delayed long enough. Let's get started before it gets any worse. Fellow chiropractors, the ideas you have just heard have converted my time into money. Remember, poverty and illness are not evidence of virtue, but of weakness and timidity. These principles can do the same for you as they have for me. Listen to this record often. The rest is up to you.